Hi everyone, I'm Lance, and this is a video response to Maha Treasure's box, Tarot 11. 11 questions for the 2018 Tarot tag. So question number 1, when and how did you first discover tarot? I first discovered tarot when I was going to New Age store in southern Florida called Star Child back in the mid-90s. I was really interested in New Age stuff in general, particularly crystals and magic and herbs. Divination a little bit. I had received a rune set and gotten some books on like energetic healing and rune magic when I was about 9 or 10. So I found this New Age store when I was 11 or 12, something around there. Yeah, they had lots of tarot decks. I ended up buying one, and I ended up doing their psychic development program as well. So within a year, I had done my first psychic fair at the store. Mostly I was reading for other kids, not adults so much. And then, yeah, from there it kind of just proliferated with my interest in divination arts. Number 2. How long have you been working with tarot? So, since about then, I'm 35 now, can do the math. It's been on and off. You know, like there'd be periods where I have a deck and I'm reading a lot from my friends, and then one of my friends is very interested, so I'd give the deck away. And then shortly after, some other friend has a deck and they want a reading, and just kind of kept going that way. One deck that kept coming back into my hands was the Phantasmagoric Tarot. Now it's one that I don't really connect with, but for some reason I ended up having like 4 or 5 different copies of this over the years. Number 3, do you consider yourself a deck collector? No, I do not. I have maybe 18 to 20-ish decks. Some are Oracle, most are Tarot. Mostly I use just 2 decks, the Centennial deck by Pamela Coleman Smith and the Fiorentine Minchiati, which has extra cards, so it's like Tarot Plus. So I use those 2 decks. Those are my working decks and my personal decks. The other decks I have are more for when people want to learn tarot or they're interested in tarot. I like to show them that there's a lot of options. I also use it for Instagram and like social media stuff because they look nice. I like artwork. But for reading, I like those 2 decks that I mentioned previously. Do you cleanse your decks? I put them on my altar often to the various deities or spirits that I work with. Kind of like a blessing and to maintain a clear connection with my guides in this particular medium of tarot. Sometimes I'll reorganize my cards by major and by minors, or I'll smoke them over some incense if I'm burning camphor, one of my favorite herbs, by the way. So I'll usually burn camphor once a week to cleanse my house, and if I'm feeling it, I'll pass my decks through, but not very often. For me, tarot is partly a spiritual expression and a philosophical expression, and a way to create personal narrative and generate more self-understanding. Sometimes, you're having a feeling or a thought process, and I don't necessarily know how to get it out and put it into words. Using tarot is a really great way of doing that visually, and then using that visual stimulus to express what's going on inside that might not be totally clear at first. So for me, it plays quite a big part. I'm usually pulling cards every day, sometimes doing spreads every day, but at least there's 3 to 4 cards being pulled per day, either for guidance or to express some sort of abstract thought that's going on in my head that I need to get out. A lot of those end up on my Instagram. They appear as though they are collective readings, which they sort of are. More that it's just, I'm not very good at journaling, so if I type it out, it's kind of like the same for me, and oftentimes it resonates for other people. So if that happens, that's great, and if not, that's fine too. Number 6. Number 6, do you use any system of correspondences with tarot? Yes, I do. I use astrological correspondences, I use numerology, I use elements. I use a combination of those things. Sometimes when I'm doing readings, it's kind of disregard that. So when I'm doing the reading, I kind of forget the studying part, and then what comes up intuitively, what comes up through my own associations. Sometimes that might be a very strong correspondence, astrologically or otherwise. It's not always the case though, but it definitely influences my reading style. Number 7, what is the one deck that you feel most comfortable using no matter the situation? That would be the Minchiati that I mentioned previously. I did a lot of street readings with it, and so I feel like for very short questions and short readings, I can get a lot out of the deck. And then for longer, more in-depth types of situations, there's a lot there as well. And it also has a somewhat non-illustrated minors, which for me is very nice because then it leaves a little bit more openness. I'm not stuck trying to dance around the illustrated minors. I do use the Centennial Pamela Coleman Smith deck very comfortably as well, but I like that the Minchiati gives me a little bit more freedom, and the Coleman Smith deck is also really great because people often connect with it because it's so familiar. It's been seen everywhere in media. So the images are a little bit brighter compared to this Italian deck, which often has a kind of darker color to it. Question number 8. Other than for doing readings, do you use tarot in any other way? So I use tarot for magic, I use it in ritual, I use it in making candles and charm bags. Oftentimes I'll print off little images of it, fold them up, or tape them onto a candle. Sometimes I place them on my altar. I have some larger cards. There's one behind me. Sometimes I find random tarot cards or get them at events, like a single card. Ace of Cups is a popular one that I keep ending up with. So I have a few of those from different decks, and I kind of put them all together with other items that remind me of that emotional connection and spirituality and kind of blessings. Number 9, do you read tarot for predicting the future? Yes and no. I believe it's part of the history of tarot, and I think it's very fun. But I also think predicting the future and doing the more kind of like personal discovery, self-understanding style of tarot, I think they're very much interrelated. When we do a predictive reading, people will have a response, like some sort of fear or desire outcome. They react to that predictive reading, and that can often show them themselves, just as much as a reading that is very explicit for self-understanding. Even with that, people will then maybe think, oh, well, my future will come out this way if I do this and this and this. So you're kind of setting up a predictive reading, not in an explicit way. So it's a little bit implicit in the self-understanding readings. So for me, they're both kind of the same, not an either or a yes and no type of question. I think we're kind of at the middle of creating our future and looking back on our past. And so self-reflection is necessary in both styles of reading, as is a creation of a future. If you could be any card in tarot at this point in your life, what card would you be? I guess I'll start with what card I feel like I am, and that is currently the Wheel of Fortune. I feel very much at this axis kind of place, and to me the Wheel of Fortune is like the center of the majors. So yeah, the Wheel of Fortune, that's an interesting redo. Number 10, if you could be any card in tarot at this point in your life, what card would you be? This point in my life, I feel like I'm the Wheel of Fortune. I'm kind of receiving a lot of things in my life, and either opportunities or paths. and I'm going along them. I feel like I'm kind of rolling along in a very even kind of way. That's very good. And I'm also looking for different perspective and kind of seeing where that bigger picture comes in. So for me, I'm at the middle of that wheel. I'm not outside looking at the wheel. So a card that I would like to be, I suppose, is the Magician, kind of the shadow of that wheel. I'm able to take all of those circumstances and opportunities and really direct them into one vision. I feel like I have a lot of hats. I always joke about that. So I'm an acupuncturist, I'm an herbalist, I'm medicine as well, and I'm a fortune teller. So there's a lot kind of going on the plate as well as multiple plates. And so they're all kind of bringing in different opportunities and situations. And I kind of just let it happen as it happens. So for me, maybe being the Magician and using those skills towards one kind of manifestation, a word that I hesitate with, but one project, would be great. And so that's something that I'm working on, and it's a card that I keep around and try to remind myself of so I can embody more of that kind of energy in my life. Question 11. Which one card in tarot has been most difficult for you to connect with, and how have you finally become more comfortable with it? So the second part of the question, there's no finally more comfortable with it. I'm still uncomfortable with this. And it's the Sun card. And for some reason, I know there's this thing about, the card that you least like, is going to represent an aspect of your personality that probably needs attention. And so for me, it's the Sun card, and it's for a couple reasons. One, it reminds me of like a college spring break party, and just like people being really wild and kind of like out of control and like very MTV. And it's not something I don't really like that kind of energy. I don't like the daytime drinking, which is what the Sun feels like to me a little bit. And on the other end of it, it also is just the Sun, illuminating everything. And there's no secrets anymore. There's no mystery. There's nothing hidden, and there's nothing to discover. So at that kind of end of it, I don't really connect with the Sun very much. Partly because I like being in ambiguity all the time. I think that's a quality of my personality that others have mentioned. And I aim for being in that ambiguous or paradox-like state. So for me, the Sun is a bit challenging because it kind of comes up against that. I'm not totally comfortable with it yet. Is it a card I work with? So every now and then I'll pull it and like try to write about it or see how I feel about it and check in. It's not something I'm actively engaging with as like a tarot spirit. The Sun. There's a couple that are down there at the bottom of my list, but I won't get into that because it's just one card for today. But my favorite card is the Star, so I'll throw that out there. So those are my 11 questions for Maha Treasure Box's tarot tag, and all the links to that tag and all the questions are below. Thanks.